Hi, and thank you for watching us here at Tax Talk UK, where we talk about all things tax and consider other important aspects of working for yourself, being self-employed, running a small business. So today I'm going to talk about the announcement in the autumn statement surrounding the abolishment of Class 2 national insurance and answer some questions and clear up some confusion that has arisen since then. Before I talk about that, if I could please ask you to take a moment to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you'll easily be able to refer back to this information if you need to, as well as being able to access other information that we have available on a whole host of different topics, all aimed at supporting you in your self-employment. If you navigate to the playlist section of our YouTube channel, you will be able to find the information loosely catalogued, which should help you to find the information that's most relevant to you or your trading style more easily. So back then to Class 2 national insurance and the confusion that has arisen and the questions all surround the fact that the announcement in the statement was the abolishment of Class 2 national insurance, but then there was a caveat that benefits would still be received. And this is where the majority of the questions have surrounded. So up until the statement, how it has worked to now is, so Class 2 national insurance is a category paid by sole traders, the self-employed, and it enables them access to a range of state benefits, including the state pension. Now, there has for a long time been the small profits threshold, underneath which somebody isn't obliged to pay Class 2 national insurance, but they can pay them voluntarily if they wish. If they need the qualifying year would be primarily the reason that they would choose to voluntarily pay. But if they didn't need that and they didn't wish to voluntarily pay and their earnings were under the small profits threshold, then no Class 2 national insurance would be paid. Now, in the 22-23 tax year, the lower profits threshold was introduced. And if somebody was earning over the small profits threshold, but below the lower profits threshold, they would effectively not have to pay the Class 2 national insurance, but it would be treated as if they had. So therefore, they would still access the benefits. They would receive the qualifying year without having to actually pay the Class 2 national insurance. So in effect, what's going to happen following the announcement in the autumn statement, so from the 23-24 year, effectively anybody over the small profits threshold who is a sole trader will be treated as a qualifying year without having to pay the Class 2 national insurance. But if your earnings are below the small profits threshold, you won't receive that benefit. It won't be a qualifying year unless you voluntarily pay the Class 2 national insurance. So this is where confusion has arisen, and the questions surround: will I still be entitled to my pension? Why would I voluntarily pay? So basically the reasons to pay voluntary Class 2 national insurance are exactly the same as they always have been. And to receive the benefit of the qualifying year, if you are below the small profits threshold, you still will need to pay the Class 2 national insurance rate. But as long as you're over the small profits threshold, regardless of whether you're under or over the lower profits threshold, then you will still receive the qualifying year without having to pay. And presumably, because of course we've not in a position to be submitting tax returns for the 24-25 year, So the 22-23 year, when we submitted those tax returns, that was the first year that the lower profits threshold had been introduced, and that if you were between the small profits threshold and the lower profits threshold, so for the 22-23 year, that was 6,725 for the small profits threshold and 11,908 for the lower profits threshold. So between those two amounts, then it would actually state on your tax calculation that your Class 2 national insurance contribution was treated as if it were paid, but you didn't have to pay it. So effectively, that is going to be extended above the lower profits threshold. So I can see where the confusion has arisen, and hopefully the government will in time make this clearer. But basically, what you need to be aware of, that if you are under the small profits threshold and you want to have a qualifying year, you still will need to voluntarily pay Class 2 national insurance. So in effect, it hasn't really at this stage been abolished, because it is still something you can pay. And I think that is where the confusion has arisen. So if you earn over the small profits threshold and over the lower profits threshold, then you will not be having to pay this going forward. So still a little bit confusing. I do appreciate that, but hopefully this clarifies the confusion that surrounds the term abolishment, and yet you can still pay it voluntarily. So it's not technically, it's not being abolished in its entirety, certainly not at this stage. Perhaps we might get more information, and perhaps that's forms part of a later plan. Certainly the abolishment has been consulted on many years previously, so it obviously has been something on the government's radar for a long time. But at this stage, you still will be able to pay your voluntary Class 2 national insurance if you're under the small profits threshold. So thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.